Every morning, before the world speaks to you, your mind already has, before your phone vibrates, before the news scares you, before someone reminds you of what you didn't achieve, a quiet voice inside whispers, "You're late, you're behind, you messed up again." And here is the truth. Most people never realize your day does not begin when you wake up. It begins with the first thought you accept. If that thought is toxic, you don't live the day, you survive it. Think of your mind like a room. If you start each morning by throwing yesterday's garbage back inside, how will there be space for peace, clarity, or fresh ideas? The good news is this: you don't need to fight your thoughts, you need to guide them. Today I will show you how to clean your mind every morning, the same way you wash your face, because a dirty mind makes a peaceful life impossible. The first key point is understanding that most people are not suffering because life is cruel, but because their mind has no filter. From the moment they wake up, they allow every random thought to sit on the throne of their attention. A memory from the past, a fear about the future, a comment someone made years ago. Everything is given equal importance. That is dangerous. Imagine letting every stranger walk into your house and start rearranging your furniture. That is exactly what happens in the mind every morning. Thoughts are visitors, not owners. Some are helpful, many are useless, and a few are poisonous. The problem begins when you stop questioning them. The mind starts to feel heavy not because life is heavy, but because it is carrying thoughts that were never meant to stay. Most people believe that if a thought appears, it must be true. That belief quietly destroys peace. The mind is a machine designed to generate thoughts non-stop, just like the heart beats non-stop. You don't panic when your heart beats faster, but you panic when your mind speaks louder. Why? Because no one taught you that thoughts are suggestions, not commands. A toxic thought gains power only when you agree with it. The moment you start observing instead of absorbing, the balance shifts. You realize that you are not broken for having negative thoughts. You are only untrained. Once you accept that thoughts come and go naturally, you stop blaming yourself and start reclaiming authority over your inner space. A mind without a filter becomes a dumping ground. Stress from work, fear from the news, comparison from social media, unresolved emotions from relationships, all of it piles up. Then one small problem feels overwhelming, not because it is big, but because the mind is already crowded. Clarity is not about adding more positive thoughts. It is about removing mental noise. When you clear unnecessary thoughts, even ordinary days feel lighter. You start responding instead of reacting. Decisions become simpler. Emotions become manageable. This is not magic, it is mental hygiene. Just like you clean your body daily, the mind also requires daily cleaning. Ignoring this creates long-term exhaustion that sleep alone cannot fix. Many people try to fix their mind by changing external situations. New job, new city, new relationship. But the same unfiltered mind follows them everywhere. The patterns repeat because the root problem remains untouched. If the mind is not trained to question thoughts, every environment will eventually feel toxic. Freedom begins the moment you stop believing everything you think. That moment is quiet but powerful. It feels like stepping back from a noisy crowd and finally hearing your own breath. That space is where calm lives, not because problems disappear, but because they no longer sit on your head all at once. An unfiltered mind also distorts reality. One mistake becomes a label. One failure becomes an identity. One bad morning becomes a bad life. This exaggeration happens automatically when thoughts are left unchecked. The mind connects dots that don't belong together. It creates stories and then convinces you that those stories are facts. Over time, confidence erodes, energy drops, and motivation fades. Not due to lack of ability, but due to constant mental self-sabotage. When you begin filtering thoughts, you stop letting one moment define your entire worth. You start seeing situations as events, not verdicts. Learning to filter thoughts does not mean suppressing emotions. It means understanding them without drowning in them. Suppression creates pressure. Awareness creates release. When a toxic thought arises and you notice it without judgment, it loses intensity. It no longer needs to shout. The mind calms down when it feels heard but not obeyed. This is a subtle skill, but once developed, it changes everything. You realize that peace is not the absence of thoughts, but the absence of blind belief in them. That realization alone can reduce anxiety more than any external solution. Over time, a filtered mind becomes a safe place. You no longer wake up feeling attacked by your own thoughts. There is space to breathe, space to plan, space to simply exist. Life still brings challenges, but they arrive one at a time, not as a mental storm. When the mind is clean, even silence feels comforting instead of uncomfortable. This is the foundation of mental strength. Not aggression, not control, but clarity. And clarity begins the moment you stop letting every thought decide how your day will feel. The second key point is realizing that waiting for your mind to feel ready is one of the biggest traps you can fall into. Most people begin their day by checking how they feel. If they feel motivated, they act. If they feel tired, confused, or low, they delay life. But the mind was never designed to give permission. It was designed to be directed. When you ask the mind, "Do you feel good today?" it answers based on old habits, past stress, and unfinished emotions. That answer is rarely helpful. Starting your morning by obeying your mood is like letting an untrained driver take control of a powerful vehicle. The direction becomes unpredictable, and sooner or later, you crash into unnecessary stress. The mind is deeply influenced by the first signals it receives after waking up. If the first thing it experiences is hesitation, scrolling, or mental complaining, it assumes the day requires defense. But if the first action is intentional, even something small, the mind learns stability. You do not need to feel confident to sit up. You do not need enthusiasm to take a deep breath. Action comes first, emotion follows later. This reverses the common mistake people make. They believe clarity produces action, but in reality, action produces clarity. The moment you move your body with purpose, your mind slowly aligns with it. There is a powerful difference between forcing yourself and leading yourself. Forcing creates resistance. Leading creates cooperation. When you wake up and gently take charge, the mind resists less. One calm instruction given consistently every morning trains the mind faster than 100 motivational speeches. Sitting up in bed and focusing on your breath may seem simple, but it sends a clear message. Someone is in control here. Over time, the mind begins to trust this leadership. It stops throwing random thoughts so aggressively because it senses direction. Discipline does not need to be harsh, it needs to be consistent. Many people think discipline means doing difficult things. In truth, discipline begins with doing small things without negotiation. Negotiation is where energy leaks. When you debate with your mind in the morning, you lose before the day even starts. The mind is excellent at giving logical excuses. It remembers every reason you should wait, but progress does not respond to reasons, it responds to movement. The moment you stop negotiating and start acting, mental noise reduces. You feel lighter, not because problems disappeared, but because you are no longer arguing with yourself. Starting the morning without permission builds internal confidence in a quiet way. It is not loud or dramatic, it shows up as self-trust. You begin to realize that you can rely on yourself even when emotions are unstable. That is a rare strength. Most people rely on motivation, which is unreliable. You start relying on decision, which is steady. This shift changes how you face challenges throughout the day. Instead of waiting to feel ready, you ask, "What is the next right action?" That question alone cuts through confusion. The mind slowly adapts to what you repeatedly show it. If every morning you demonstrate leadership, the mind learns to follow. It stops creating unnecessary fear because fear is often a test to see who is in charge. When the mind realizes that fear does not stop action, it reduces its intensity. This is how courage is built, not by eliminating fear, but by acting in its presence. Morning leadership becomes training for life leadership. You respond to stress with clarity instead of panic because you practiced it at the start of the day. Over time, this habit reshapes your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone controlled by mood, energy, or circumstances. You see yourself as someone who moves first and thinks later. That creates momentum. Even difficult days feel manageable because you already won the most important battle before breakfast. The battle was not against the world, but against hesitation. And once hesitation loses its power in the morning, it struggles to return during the day. The third key point is learning the life-changing difference between experiencing a thought and becoming that thought. Most people don't realize when the switch happens. A feeling arises, a sentence appears in the mind, and within seconds it turns into identity. I feel anxious quietly becomes I am anxious. I failed once becomes I am a failure. This transformation happens so fast that it feels natural, but it is not. It is a habit. And like all habits, it can be unlearned. The moment you confuse a temporary mental event with who you are, you hand over control. You stop observing life and start drowning in it. When you become a thought, the mind closes its doors. There is no space to breathe, no room to respond. Everything feels personal, urgent, and heavy. A small worry feels like a cry. Sis. A simple task feels impossible. This is not because the situation is extreme, but because there is no distance between you and what you are thinking. Distance is not avoidance, it is clarity. When you create even a small gap, the emotional charge weakens. The mind calms down because it no longer feels trapped inside its own story. Language plays a powerful role here. The words you use internally shape your emotional experience. Saying I am stressed locks stress into your identity. Saying I am noticing stress loosens its grip. One word changes the entire relationship. This is not positive thinking, it is precise thinking. Precision gives you control. You are not denying what you feel. You are placing it where it belongs, as an experience, not a definition. This shift may feel subtle at first, but it rewires how your mind processes difficulty. The mind resists this separation in the beginning. It prefers drama over observation because drama feels familiar. The mind has practiced emotional reactions for years. When you stop merging with thoughts, the mind tries to pull you back with intensity. Thoughts become louder, more convincing. This is not failure, it is adjustment. Like a child testing boundaries, the mind pushes harder when leadership changes. If you remain steady and keep observing, the intensity slowly drops. The mind learns that it no longer needs to shout to be heard. Once you stop becoming your thoughts, emotions begin to move instead of getting stuck. Anxiety passes faster. Anger cools quicker. Sadness feels less suffocating. You are not suppressing emotions, you are allowing them to complete their natural cycle. Emotions want attention, not ownership. When you observe them without turning them into identity, they dissolve on their own. This is emotional intelligence in its purest form. You don't control emotions, you understand them. This practice also changes how you relate to yourself. Self-judgment reduces because you no longer label yourself based on passing mental states. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What is happening in me right now?" That question is kinder and more accurate. It invites awareness instead of punishment. Over time, this creates a sense of inner safety. You trust yourself more because you know you won't abandon yourself every time a negative thought appears. As this awareness deepens, you begin to experience a quiet freedom. Thoughts still come, but they no longer define the direction of your day. You can choose action even when the mind is noisy. You can remain calm even when emotions are present. Life feels less reactive and more intentional. You are no longer dragged by every mental wave. You are standing on the shore, watching them rise and fall, knowing they do not decide who you are. The fourth key point is recognizing how often you begin a new day while mentally living in the previous one. Many people wake up physically in the present but emotionally in the past. Before their feet touch the floor, their mind reopens unfinished conversations, old disappointments, and moments they wish had gone differently. The body is ready for today, but the mind is busy replaying yesterday. This habit feels harmless, but it quietly steals energy. You cannot move forward while dragging mental luggage behind you. Each old thought adds weight, and eventually even simple tasks feel exhausting. The mind loves familiarity, even when familiarity is painful. Replaying the past gives a false sense of control, as if thinking about it enough times might change it. But repetition does not bring resolution, it brings fatigue. Every time you relive an old moment, your body reacts as if it is happening again. Stress hormones release, muscles tighten, breathing becomes shallow. The nervous system does not know the difference between memory and reality. This is why carrying yesterday into today drains you before the day even begins. Letting go of yesterday does not mean pretending it did not matter. It means understanding that its job is finished. Lessons can be carried forward, emotions do not need to be. The problem is not memory, it is attachment. When you attach your self-worth to past outcomes, the mind keeps returning there, searching for validation or correction. This keeps you stuck in mental time travel. True maturity is the ability to extract wisdom without reopening wounds. That ability is learned through awareness, not force. Many people fear that if they stop thinking about the past, they will repeat the same mistakes. In reality, the opposite is true. Constant replay clouds judgment. When the mind is filled with old noise, it cannot clearly see what is happening now. Growth requires presence. The more you anchor yourself in the present moment, the sharper your awareness becomes. You respond better, listen better, and choose better. Letting go of yesterday actually increases intelligence, not carelessness. A powerful practice is asking one simple question. When a past thought appears, does this thought help me act wisely today? If the answer is no, it has overstayed its welcome. This question shifts you from emotional reaction to practical awareness. You stop treating thoughts as personal and start treating them as tools. Some tools are useful, others are outdated. You don't keep using a broken tool just because you've had it for years. The same logic applies to thoughts. Starting the day without yesterday's emotional residue creates a sense of lightness. You feel more open, more patient, more flexible. Small irritations don't escalate as quickly because the mind is not already burdened. This does not mean you become careless or detached. It means you become efficient. Energy that was wasted on rumination is now available for action, creativity, and connection. Life begins to feel less like a struggle and more like a process. Over time, this habit reshapes how you experience mornings. Instead of waking up with tension, you wake up with curiosity. What will today bring? What can I do with what I have right now? This mindset builds resilience naturally. You stop measuring today through the lens of yesterday's failures or successes. Each day becomes a fresh opportunity rather than a continuation of old patterns. The mind learns to rest in the present, where real life actually happens. The fifth key point is understanding that the first few minutes after waking are not ordinary minutes, they are impressionable minutes. In this window, the mind is still soft, still open, still forming its direction. Whatever you feed it during this time does not just pass through, it settles. Many people unknowingly surrender this powerful window to noise. Notifications, headlines, messages, other people's urgency. The mind has not even met itself yet, and suddenly it is handling the weight of the world. When this happens daily, clarity never gets a chance to lead. Chaos gets there first. The brain in the early morning is not fully armored. It absorbs faster and reacts deeper. This is why a single negative message in the morning can ruin an entire day, while the same message at night feels manageable. The system is setting its baseline. If stress enters first, stress becomes the reference point. If calm enters first, calm becomes the foundation. This is not philosophy, it is conditioning. The mind learns what kind of day it is about to have based on the opening moments. When you ignore this, you let randomness decide your internal state. People often say they don't have time in the morning, but the truth is they don't protect time. 10 minutes is not a luxury, it is a boundary. Those 10 minutes are not for productivity, planning, or fixing life. They are for alignment. Even silence counts, especially silence. When the mind sits without stimuli, it begins to organize itself naturally. Thoughts slow down, awareness sharpens. You don't need to solve anything, you only need to stop adding inputs. Most mental overload comes not from problems, but from excess information without space to process it. When you consciously control the start of your day, something subtle changes. You stop feeling chased by time. The day no longer feels like it started without you. There is a sense of arrival, of presence. You feel like you entered the day instead of being thrown into it. This feeling builds quiet confidence, not the loud kind that needs validation, but the steady kind that knows it can handle what comes. That confidence does not come from motivation, it comes from grounding. Many people believe discipline is about pushing harder later in the day. In reality, discipline is about setting the tone early so you don't have to fight yourself later. When the morning is rushed and reactive, the rest of the day becomes damage control. But when the morning is intentional, even difficult moments feel less chaotic. You respond instead of react. You pause instead of panic. The mind remembers the calm it started with and tries to return to it throughout the day. Protecting the first minutes is also an act of self-respect. It sends a message to your nervous system that your inner state matters more than external demands. Over time, this changes how you relate to pressure. You no longer feel obligated to be immediately available to everyone and everything. You realize that availability without stability leads to burnout. By choosing yourself first, you don't become selfish, you become centered. And a centered person handles responsibility far better than a scattered one. As this practice continues, mornings stop feeling heavy. Waking up no longer triggers immediate mental noise. There is space between you and the day. In that space, you can choose how you want to show up. That choice is power. Not dramatic power, not forceful power, but quiet authority over your own attention. When the first minutes are yours, the rest of the day listens. The sixth key point is understanding why repeating empty positive statements often fails to change anything, while a few grounded words can stabilize the mind instantly. Many people try to fight toxic thoughts with overly optimistic phrases they don't believe. The mind senses the gap between words and reality and quietly rejects them. This creates frustration and self-doubt. True mental stability does not come from pretending everything is perfect. It comes from giving the mind something solid to hold on to. An anchor is not meant to inspire, it is meant to steady. And in moments of inner chaos, steadiness matters more than excitement. The mind becomes unstable when it has nothing reliable to return to. It jumps from fear to memory to imagination, searching for safety. When you give it a short, believable sentence, it finally rests. An anchor works because it feels honest. It does not deny difficulty. It simply places difficulty in proportion. Words like "I can handle this moment" do not promise an easy future, they offer present grounding. That honesty builds trust. Over time, the mind stops resisting and starts cooperating because it no longer feels manipulated by unrealistic optimism. Anchors work best when they are simple and repeated consistently. Complexity creates confusion. The mind under stress cannot process long explanations. It needs clarity, not logic. A single phrase, repeated calmly, creates a rhythm. That rhythm slows breathing, reduces mental speed, and brings awareness back into the body. You are not trying to erase thoughts, you are redirecting attention. This redirection is gentle but firm. It tells the mind where to land when it feels lost. Many people underestimate how much their internal language shapes their emotional world. Every repeated sentence becomes a pathway. If the mind hears "I'm not enough" daily, it builds a road toward insecurity. If it hears "I am learning" daily, it builds a different route. Anchors are chosen deliberately to reshape these pathways. They are not slogans, they are instructions. Over time, they become automatic responses. Stress triggers the anchor instead of panic. Difficulty triggers grounding instead of self-attack. Choosing the right anchor requires self-awareness. It must reflect your current truth, not your ideal self. If you are overwhelmed, an anchor about strength may feel false, but an anchor about presence feels reachable. The goal is not to elevate mood, it is to stabilize attention. Once attention is stable, emotions regulate naturally. This is why anchors are powerful in the morning. They set a reference point the mind can return to throughout the day, especially during pressure. Anchors also reduce decision fatigue. When the mind knows what to return to, it stops constantly searching for reassurance. This frees mental energy. You feel less scattered because you are no longer negotiating with every thought. The anchor becomes a default response, like a mental home base. No matter where the mind travels, it knows how to come back. This creates emotional resilience without force. Over time, anchors shape identity in a quiet way. You stop seeing yourself as someone at the mercy of thoughts. You become someone who can ground themselves in any situation. That confidence is internal and unshakable. It does not depend on success or external approval. It comes from knowing that no matter what arises, you have a stable place to return to within yourself. The seventh key point is understanding that the mind was never meant to be an enemy, yet most people treat it like one. They fight their thoughts, suppress emotions, and judge themselves for what appears internally. This creates a constant inner war, and in any war, energy is wasted. The mind does not become calm through force, it becomes calm through guidance. When you stop attacking your own thoughts and start leading them, something shifts. Resistance lowers, tension softens. The mind listens when it feels respected, not threatened. Guidance begins with relationship. Just like any relationship, the tone matters. If you speak to your mind with anger or disappointment, it reacts defensively. Produces more noise, more doubt, more fear. But when the inner voice becomes steady and clear, the mind slowly aligns. This does not mean you allow every thought to run freely. Leadership includes boundaries. You acknowledge what arises, but you decide what stays. That balance between awareness and direction is what turns the mind from chaos into cooperation. Many people believe control means suppressing thoughts. Suppression creates pressure, and pressure eventually explodes. Guidance works differently. It notices the thought, understands its source, and gently redirects attention. This redirection might be toward breath, toward the body, or toward a chosen focus. The mind resists less because it is not being pushed away, it is being shown a better direction. Over time, the mind learns that it does not need to create fear to get attention. A guided mind becomes quieter not because it is empty, but because it is focused. Focus is calming. When attention has a clear direction, scattered thoughts lose relevance. This is why clarity feels peaceful. You are no longer mentally pulled in 10 directions. The mind moves as one unit. That unity creates strength. Decisions feel simpler. Reactions slow down. You feel present instead of overwhelmed. This is not something you force. It develops naturally when leadership is consistent. Consistency is what transforms guidance into habit. Leading the mind once does not change much. Leading it daily reshapes behavior. Each time you redirect attention calmly, you reinforce a pattern. Over weeks, the mind begins to anticipate direction. It pauses before spiraling. It waits for instruction. This is when inner authority develops. You don't feel the need to control every thought because the mind has learned your rhythm. It trusts your presence. As this relationship strengthens, emotional regulation improves. You don't panic as quickly. You recover faster after stress. You stop over-identifying with passing emotions. There is space between stimulus and response. In that space, choice exists. That choice is freedom. Not freedom from problems, but freedom from automatic reactions. Life feels more navigable. You handle pressure with steadiness instead of urgency. Eventually, the mind becomes an ally. It supports your intentions instead of sabotaging them. Creativity flows easier. Focus lasts longer. Even silence feels comfortable. This is not because the mind disappeared, but because it is finally being guided. When the inner war ends, energy returns. And with that energy, life begins to move forward with clarity and purpose. Now, as you stand on the edge of each morning, remember this. Your mind is not your enemy. Your thoughts are not your truth, and your past is not your prison. Every day begins with a choice, whether to surrender to chaos or to claim clarity. The power to shape your day, to shape your life, lies not in circumstances, not in motivation, but in the simple, consistent practice of guiding your own mind. When you clear the noise, anchor yourself in the present, and lead your thoughts with intention, you create a mind that serves you rather than controls you. Life will still bring challenges, but you will meet them from a place of strength, not reaction. Peace, focus, and resilience are not distant ideals. They are the natural result of the discipline you practice each morning. So start tomorrow and every morning after by giving yourself this gift: a mind free from toxic thoughts, a heart calm in its clarity, and a spirit ready to live fully. Because when your mind is clean, your life cannot help but shine.